That decisiveness makes him someone others naturally turn to when chaos hits. He doesn't wait for consensus. He leads with clarity. That leadership, though, doesn't come from ego. It comes from integrity. He doesn't shift his character depending on who's watching. Whether in private or public, his behavior aligns with his beliefs. He says what he means and he follows through, even when it costs him. That kind of consistency builds a quiet authority that no bragging can replicate. He's also someone who recognizes the strength in respect. He doesn't see others as competition to crush, but as people to connect with. He listens fully, without rushing to respond. He values boundaries, his own and those of others. And because he doesn't feel the need to dominate, he creates space for others to grow around him. That safety makes his presence magnetic. Most importantly, his presence isn't performative. He doesn't need the spotlight to feel strong. His strength is subtle. It's in how he handles pressure, keeps his word, maintains control, and builds momentum when others stall. He doesn't just lead, he models what grounded power actually looks like. The way a man speaks reveals far more than his words. It reflects his confidence, clarity, and control. A true alpha doesn't just talk, he communicates. And there's a difference. Communication is intentional. It has direction, not just volume. He doesn't rely on excessive words or grand gestures to be heard. His message carries weight because he's clear on what he stands for. Each sentence is measured. Every pause has purpose. He doesn't ramble to fill silence, and he doesn't race to respond. Silence doesn't threaten him. It gives his words space to land. But speaking well starts with listening deeply. The real alpha listens not just to reply, but to understand. He observes tone, body language, and emotion. He reads the room, not just the words. That awareness makes people feel seen, not just heard. It creates trust, because people recognize when they're actually being paid attention to. His tone remains steady, even when the conversation gets heated. There's no need to shout. He's composed, not because he's detached, but because he values precision over reaction. Emotional outbursts aren't part of his vocabulary. He chooses his words carefully, especially when the stakes are high. His voice reassures rather than threatens. Nonverbal communication is just as powerful. Posture, eye contact, pace. These things speak before any words do. He doesn't fidget or shrink into himself. His movements are controlled, purposeful. He carries himself like someone who knows who he is, which makes others naturally listen. He also knows the power of boundaries in conversation. He can say no without guilt, express needs without confrontation, and hold space for disagreement without taking it personally. Assertiveness is his default, not aggression, not submission. He doesn't overpower, he directs. At the core of his communication is clarity. He says what he means, and he means what he says. No mixed signals, no guessing games. That kind of clarity makes him dependable, not just in speech, but in action. This is what real influence looks like. Not control, not intimidation, but connection through deliberate speech. The kind of presence that quiets noise, centers attention, and leads without forcing. Powerful men aren't defined by how many people they command, but by the quality of the relationships they maintain. A true alpha doesn't isolate himself in an illusion of superiority. He builds meaningful bonds rooted in mutual trust and honest connection. He doesn't approach others as tools to be used or obstacles to be overcome. Every interaction is grounded in respect. Whether he's talking to a friend, a partner, or a stranger, he shows up with the same consistent energy, attentive, grounded, and real. Manipulation has no place in his interactions. He doesn't twist words or play games to gain favor. What you see is what you get. That transparency draws people in because there's no guessing, no double meanings. He creates safety by simply being consistent. He also values emotional availability, not in the performative sense, but in quiet moments where he lets down his guard to show genuine care. He's not afraid to ask how someone's really doing, or to share something honest about himself. These moments are where real loyalty is built. In relationships, he respects independence. He doesn't seek to control or overshadow. Instead, he creates space for others to express, grow, and thrive. His confidence isn't threatened by someone else's strength. He celebrates it. He knows that power shared is power multiplied. He knows when to give and when to step back. He offers support without creating dependence. He protects his own peace while remaining generous with his time and energy. Balance is what he strives for, not control. And when conflict arises, he faces it with clarity. He doesn't avoid difficult conversations. He engages with empathy, clarity, and a desire to resolve, not win. That approach builds deeper bonds, not resentment. These are the connections that last, not because they're easy, but because they're real. And the man who leads with authenticity will always be the one others choose to stand beside. There's no strength in standing still. A man committed to leading himself doesn't coast on past wins, he evolves. Growth is never optional for someone serious about becoming his best. He doesn't wait for life to push him into action. He actively seeks discomfort because he knows that challenge is where real growth lives. Whether it's reading something that stretches his mind, learning a new skill, or confronting a personal flaw, he's not afraid of starting from scratch. He takes feedback seriously, not as a threat, but as a tool. He knows he doesn't have all the answers, and he's okay with that. What matters is that he's always learning, always refining, always moving forward. He's disciplined about improvement. He sets goals, tracks progress, and holds himself to the standard he expects from others. He doesn't get stuck in excuses. When he falls short, he recalibrates instead of retreating. Failure doesn't break him, it sharpens him, and he understands the value of reflection. He takes time to examine his patterns, his choices, and his impact on others. That self-awareness fuels intentional growth, not reactive change. There's also a quiet power in knowing your limits. He sets boundaries around his time, his energy, and his attention. That's not selfish, it's strategic. It allows him to protect his focus and stay aligned with what actually matters. He also invests in his health, not just physically, but mentally. He doesn't ignore stress or mask insecurity. He addresses them, builds tools, and seeks support when needed. Strength, for him, is about wholeness, not appearances. The man who grows intentionally becomes the one others look to for guidance, not because he's flawless, but because he's never stagnant. He leads by motion, not position. And over time, that movement speaks louder than words ever could. The real alpha doesn't perform. He lives with purpose. He builds himself through action, not noise. In every choice, every word, and every relationship, he leads with clarity, not control. This kind of man doesn't chase power. He builds presence. He doesn't need to prove anything, because who he is speaks louder than any image. He listens. He grows. He shows up. That's the modern alpha. And here's the truth. The world doesn't need louder voices. It needs stronger examples. So let's turn this into a conversation. What's one trait you believe defines a real alpha today? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every one. If this video gave you a new perspective or challenged what you thought you knew, hit like and subscribe. I'm building a community of men committed to growth, not performance, and you belong in it.